Hello everyone and welcome to the monthly meeting for the Mobile IT Community of Interest. Thank you very much for joining us today. Just before we get started, I would like to review how to use this GoToWebinar system and optimize your experience. Briefly explain now how to interact with the meeting using the GoToWebinar system. Everybody on the call is currently set to default mute. Due to lots of participants. You can, however, get the audio over your telephone or your speakers, but I'm sure you've worked that out already. The panel is set to hide automatically, but if you want to bring the thing up to ask questions, then please use the orange arrow. Mention questions. If you have any questions during the presentation, please forward them on the questions tab, and we'll look at those at the end. And also at the end of the session, we'll have a live polls section. And again, those will be questions with multi-choices. At the end of the meeting, we'll mention the follow-up survey. Please respond to the questions so we can incorporate your feedback into the work of our community. So, without much more ado, I will start the presentation. Firstly, about the community of interest. The objective of the community is to truly showcase the mobility solutions and opportunities that will or have been adopted in the capital projects industry. We strive to achieve this goal by presenting the latest use cases of mobile IT adoption and also allowing the breadth of the community participants to expose their perspective on these technology applications. We have been delivering use cases and industry perspectives through various channels, including monthly meetings such as this one, and also virtual and live discussions, some documentation and reports from the gatherings, but also by facilitating the creation of research and development projects within both organisations. The community is a joint venture between FearTech and Comet. FearTech, a little bit about FearTech, it's a member-based organisation and its objective to improve the productivity of the capital projects industry through the deployment of technology solution. Our goal is to improve the productivity in the capital project sector through the adequate leadership in global development and adoption of innovation practice. Comet is a UK-based organisation whose principal aim is to learn from experience and deliver measurable business benefits in terms of adoption of mobile technologies. This ongoing partnership supports the work and objectives of the community. So who's in the community? Well, firstly, it's been running for just over 3 years. In this time, we've had more than 1,550 participants from over 460 organisations and located in 43 countries. Mainly participants are located in North America and Europe. As we continue to expand, we're going through the Middle East and the Far East, beginning to attract participation from South America and elsewhere. The industry's response so far has been very good, and we are continuously working to meet the needs of our participants. Announcement, we've got FearTech as an event, ETDP, coming up in London on the 31st of May. I'll mention a little bit more about that at the end. But I wanted to share that this is on the calendar, and we've been running this for a few years now, and information is on that link available on the website, but again I'll get to that at the end. So the main presentation, thanks very much to Joe from Basestone for joining us today. Joe will explain to us the importance of putting the end user first. By asking the right questions and keeping the end user involved at all stages along the journey, you can continually refine your needs and requirements to get the best business outcomes. A bit about Joe. Joe's background is in aerospace engineering. He's a specialist in global collaboration technologies, software as a service and change management methodologies. He's currently responsible for driving Basestone's pre-sales activities and raising customer requirements and trends to the product development team. So, Joe, I'll pass it over to you now.
Fantastic, sir. Thank you very much. Cheers for the introduction.
Thank you very much.
So yeah, just to reiterate some of the things that Stuart just mentioned, I've been working at Basestone now for over 6 months, and for the last 4 years I've been working within collaboration technologies within that space. I've been in the construction industry now, and I've got the engineering background, but today we're going to be going through how the end user, the role that they play when making business decisions. I'm going to cover some of the industry information, such as how Crossrail pushing a very strong drive for innovation and technology to get proven results when it comes down to saving time, being more productive when you are delivering engineering projects, and the role that technology plays when doing that. So here's a brief agenda of some of the things that we're going to be going through. As mentioned already, we're going to be going through the sector's goals currently and the use of tech and the drivers that are there for this improvement. We're going to then look into Crossrail and how they are effectively digitizing traditional workflows through the use of Baselone. I'll then cover off how at Baselone we approach developing our products, and that's through a build, measure, learn methodology, and I'll be showing you some of the real examples that we've actually taken on board when developing our products through keeping the end user involved at all stages of building out our product. And at the end, I'll give you some key bits of knowledge that you can take away and apply within your own organization when trying to use and involve your own end users in making those decisions. So let's have a look at construction at the moment in the broader sense and have a look at some of the goals and key drivers for change that are taking place within it. So the UK government outlined and set some goals for overall improvements by 2025 in one of their recent papers. And the two things that I want to draw your attention to are that they want to lower costs of engineering products by 33% and deliver these projects in half the time. Now, in order to do that, technology is one of the key ways that this is going to be achieved. But having a look across industries as a whole, we've got the McKinsey report here, which is the Global Digitization Index. And it basically highlights some of the industry leaders in utilizing technology and digital technologies in order to get real value in some of the workflows that are present. Now, if we have a look at construction, it's right at the bottom. So we're the second from the bottom. We are pretty much laggards at the moment. We really need to catch up. Now, luckily for all of us in the construction and engineering industry now, we are aware of this. This has been shown by reports such as the Institute of Civil Engineers State of the Nation report this year, which very much focuses on digital transformation and the need for digital transformation in order to improve the construction industry. We also had the Pharma report, Modernise or Die as it's aptly named, which was produced in October last year, which focuses on the 10 symptoms of failure and poor performance within the construction industry. Now, I'd actually like to draw your attention to two here, which is low productivity and low predictability, both of which can be dramatically improved through the use of digital technologies. Now, by focusing on construction and utilizing technology, we're going to have more effective ways of achieving the deliverables that were outlined by the government's 2025 report. We're going to be able to help lower these costs and also deliver faster. So, taking one of the projects we've got in the UK into the limelight now, I'm going to just take a few moments to talk about the Crossrail projects. So Crossrail is currently Europe's largest infrastructure project, which is close to £15 billion. It's connecting the east and west sides of London. It's nearly 120 kilometres in length, and by the time it's been completed, it will have over 200 million passengers every year. Now, as a flagship project, everyone that's involved with Crossrail hopes to raise the bar throughout the construction industry, both for present day and for any future projects that are going to be taking place. Now, to achieve this, we really need to think differently about how we share ideas and how we implement them on some of these large projects. So Crossrail have created an Innovate 18 collaboration forum. Now, this is a network of innovation champions and different innovators drawn from across Crossrail and across its supply chain and its partner network to provide the energy and inspiration that's required to deliver the projects and ensure a successful project that sets a benchmark for any future projects that come out of this. Now, when the Crossrail project is finished and it goes live and into full operation, it's going to have 200 million end users. Now, Crossrail's end users are these people here. It's the British public. Now, with the end users being the British public, every one of their requirements has been taken into consideration at every stage of the project by everybody involved. But it's worth us kind of defining and digging into what an end user actually is. So an end user is the person who actually uses a particular product. Now, within the construction element of Crossrail, we've got all these different contractors that are involved, each with their own responsibilities, products, systems that they use, and they're using these to help them deliver their part of the project. Now, these systems are often provided by the employer to typically help save time, lower costs, or reduce risks. Now, for these engineering organizations, their business end users are their employees that are using particular projects that they acquire to give to their employees in order to get these business outcomes. Now, the main thing I want to outpoint here is that from an organization's perspective, your business end users and end users are the same. So end users from an organization's perspective, and where we're going to be focusing today, are effectively the business end users. Now, for that organization, the main thing that they believe the main link is between them and their end users. Any business decisions that they are making are between the organization as an end user. Now, if we actually look at how, as a vendor and as a supplier such as Basestone, we view this differently. Now, we view this as we need to have that link between the organization as a customer and the end user themselves. So we need to ensure that our product is a good fit both with the customer's organization and the business as a whole, but it also fits with the end users and it's suitable for them as well. So from taking this into consideration, we know now that our customer is not our end user. Our end users may work for the customer, but they are two completely separate entities that we need to take into consideration at all points when we're developing our products. So this realization and understanding of this is incredibly important for how we develop our products. And moving on from here, I want to show you how we've been working on Crossrail, working directly with the end users on the Crossrail project. So it's a bit more background information on Basestone. We're a mobile-first application for construction engineering professionals to basically increase productivity, whether you're on the site or whether you're working from an office. Now, we do this by connecting them together, enabling communication streams and collaboration to take place, and allowing engineers on site to have access to all the relevant information that they need. We have those who are working in the office, very easily for them to upload any information, wherever that may be, so that the guys on site can access that from their mobile tablets. The engineers on site can then go around with their device, they can have access to their drawings, they can mark them up, they can raise issues, they can capture any information that they need, which is then automatically synchronized back to the cloud for those in the office to be able to see. They can then look through these issues, they can filter by them, they can produce reports that are required to complete a lot of the workflows that we have in modern day construction. Now, when we were introduced at Crossrail, we were brought in to help with modernizing the traditional redlining review process. So this is a standard review process that takes place on majority of the construction sites around the world, those who aren't using technology currently. Now, if we look through these different steps, we can see that there are particular areas which are unnecessary. They're duplicative tasks, or they're simply just inefficient, and they're a waste of time and a waste of an engineer's time. And we're paying our engineers good salaries, and it's not something that we should. It's not something we should be promoting as duplicative works. There's also different stages here, such as emailing people and creating reports, which are very manual and very labor intensive, and they can be fully automated. So on Crossrail now, what we've actually done is we've introduced Basestone to simplify this process so that the engineer simply goes on site, they take their tablet with them, they capture any information that they need from the site, whilst they're doing their engineering, there's no administration necessary, and then when they go back to the office, they can add further information where needs be. Now, from this, we have so far achieved results as shown on the screen now. So as through the typical redlining process, we've been able to make this speed increases of 2.5 times, and a cost reduction of 60% compared to this traditional method. Now, this was carried out on an individual project, but we also were analysed by Crossrail's Six Sigma team, and they carried out the study on the use of Basestone across a range of different roles and a range of different use cases on the Crossrail project. And they found that a minimum average productivity gain was found at about £1,000 per engineer per month, with a minimum productivity gain of 55%, and at the top end we've got about 95% productivity gain through the use of Basestone compared to traditional methods. Now, having a look at the minimum average gain here, we can actually, this is right at the very bottom, so if you're achieving better results than our minimum stated, you will be saving a lot more. And this is also taken into consideration the current exchange rate, which was actually a lot higher than that pre-Brexit. So from that, and from the design of our tool and work with our end users, we now support the following use cases, and this is continually growing. This is not to say that there are bespoke ways of using the app, it's just we've made it very flexible, and we've made it so that the engineers are able to use basic functionality but adapt it to their workflows and make it work with them to deliver these different use cases that are present. So how do we actually do that, and how do we develop a tool? And from a product development perspective, how do we work with those end users and ensure that we're continually delivering a usable and valuable app to our engineers and to the end users? We use a build, measure, learn philosophy, which is basically comprised of three main stages, and that's the build, the measure, and the learn. So we basically learn from data, which produces ideas, which then lead into our development, which we build. We build our product. We then measure upon our product, which gives us data that goes back into the cycle. Now, this is very much an incremental steps, and it's an iterative approach. When we build our tool, we make sure that we're delivering, we're building towards an end goal with small incremental deliverables along the way. And then at each of those individual stages, incremental deliverables, we can use them and measure data from them that go back into the product. It's worth mentioning that with Baselone, we have about 20 to 30 releases every year, slowly releasing pieces of functionality so that users aren't just released with one huge release that they then need to learn. We just do it in small stages, continually getting feedback, which then goes into our product development. Now, by putting these together, the iterative and the incremental, we have what's called an agile development methodology. Now, this is reducing both the time to value in terms of our releases and the risk in developing, as we're continually releasing and can make quick changes when necessary. One other thing that we do to support our end users is called customer success. Now, this is very much working with our users at all stages of the life cycle. So from initially mapping out what success looks like to them and to our customers, and how we're going to achieve it together. So we set our measurables, the things we wish to measure, and anything else that may be required in terms of the product in order to deliver on what the initial goals were. Now, we continually review these through meetings, quarterly business reviews, etc., to make sure that we're working as a partner with our customers in order to deliver real success. How's that fed into the actual product? So I'm going to go through some real examples of functionality that we've got within Baselone that has come from working directly with the end users. One of the things we initially needed to set out when we were building our product is how do we organize data and how do we make it easy for engineers on site to find the data that they need? Now, there are two ways that you can organize data. You can use a hierarchical structure such as folders, or you can use a tag structure and using meta tags. So the differences between the two are shown here. Now, both have their pros and cons. Typically, if you understand a folder structure, it's very easy for you to find a piece of content that you're looking for. But it can't live in two places at once, and end users and engineers on site may not be familiar with that folder structure. So what we've done is we've gone down the tag-based route, and now I can show you what that looks like within Baselone. Engineers on site will have access to their iPad, and this is one of the screenshots that we have on our iPads. In order to find the documentation that they need, they simply filter by the tags that are available. Now, whether you're looking for things related to escalators, to pipework, it's very easy for you to filter down to the particular drawing that you're looking for. Now, we're trying to make it as quick and easy as possible for engineers on site to have access to that information and not waste time having to locate the data that they need and the information that they need. Another area that we've used the end user and taken on board feedback is in a very simple, I say simple now, it's a very simple piece of functionality, which is our bird's eye window. Now, if you're looking within the application, it's quite easy to navigate due to the fact that we've got a bird's eye window showing exactly where you are within the overall drawing. Now, this comes from feedback from several different users saying that they were having a difficulty in understanding exactly where they were within that drawing. So from developing this feature, which was actually recommended by them, we then carried out alpha and beta testing on users that didn't have it enabled and users that had it enabled to see exactly how much that affected the end user adoption rates. And we were having, again, people were saying they were struggling to find it on those that didn't have it switched on, and those that did have it, it acted like a rear view mirror within a car. They had no idea it was there, but they had no issue with knowing exactly where they were within that drawing. And so this is within the application itself. When you're raising an issue, you can see here that we've actually also got tags on an issue level. So we're utilizing the power of tags to be able to filter and search and locate information across the entire system. It makes it very easy for engineers to quickly tag information, filter upon it, produce reports upon it, and that flexibility within the application has led to some of the use cases that you saw one of the earlier slides. And you can see here we've got the navigation showing exactly where we are, again, within the application. Our end users are on construction sites all over the world. So sometimes it's not so easy for them to pick up the phone and talk to us, depending on the time. But what we've done instead is built a feedback engine directly within the application. So we're allowing the engineers that are using our application to ask questions, make suggestions, and provide us with feedback at all points from within the application. So this is a really strong way of us keeping engaged with our users that may not be the easiest to engage with typically due to either location or timings. Now, if we're looking at your organization, how do you use the end users who are your business end users and your employees when you're making a decision to procure particular pieces of software to deliver goals which the business has decided upon? I've got a 5-step plan for success here. And it starts by understanding exactly who your end users are. And then you need to identify your champions. So these are certain end users that are going to champion your calls, and we'll come to that very shortly. You need to make sure that there's a feedback loop continually available for all of the end users and a very open plan. So similar to what I just showed within our app is that we open that line of communication and encourage users to give us feedback. This is something you should do within the business to ensure that you are listening and that what you're being told is something that's being listened to and that the engineers are being heard. That's when you start to look for a solution at step 4. And then you finalize by going back to step 3, you revisit that feedback loop and you look for that solution and you keep on iterating upon that. So when you're identifying your end users, there are particular questions that you're going to need to answer. The first of all is who will be using the product. Now this sounds pretty basic, but these are those who are going to be using the product and those who are going to be affected by the product that's being introduced. You have to take into consideration that the demographic of the users that are also going to be using that. Things such as the location, the technical ability and their ability to train. Now, if you're procuring software for one particular project site, it's reasonably easy to visit the site and train those users and communicate with them why things are being introduced. But if you're introducing something across the entire company, you may have engineers working globally, working at all different hours, and they may not be able to attend a particular training session, an in-person training session, or they may struggle to get onto a webinar. So you need to take all of this into consideration. You need to fully understand how they're currently working. That's something that we've definitely found value in, is that by understanding the workflow that engineers currently have and understanding it well, you know how to produce a system or introduce a system that works with the way they currently work. People can be resistant to change when you pull something out and say you're completely changing it. By improving it in these incremental steps and saying, we're introducing this to help you with this and it will help you in these particular ways, that's how you're going to get a product that is well adopted and well received by the end users. You then need to have a look at how this will change the way that they currently work and make sure it's working with them. And you need to outline their key requirements. So there are some things that must be very nice to have for the engineers on the ground, but is that imperative in the system? You need to outline exactly what those core needs are so that from a business you can ensure that these have been met. The second thing you need to do is identify your champions. Now, a champion is someone who's going to vigorously support and defend the cause of something. And I'm going to just talk you through now how it's best to identify these champions and ensure that they are on board with the introduction of a new software. The best champions typically have several traits, and they have a personal interest and passion, first of all, for the project or change being made. These are people who are technical advocates. They want to change the industry. They want to change something that's ongoing. They're unhappy with the way things are currently being done. And if you have that, that's probably the most important, in my opinion. Second and third is that you need them to have the skills and relevant insights to understanding everything that's part of that. They need to understand why things are being brought in and understand the workflows, but they also need to have the power and the influence to motivate others. These two can be learned, but this one, it's inherent within them. So you need to make sure that this is the main one. If you have a graduate, for example, that's incredibly passionate about making this change, the rest they can learn to ensure that the change that they're introducing gets pushed through. And now we always work very closely with the champions to ensure that when a product is rolled out, it is well adopted. It's something that requires buy-in from both sides, both from the vendor and also from the project or engineering organization that is part of a rollout. We found that the best champions have these traits as well. They're very good at communicating both the needs of the users, and also just communicating between different stakeholders that are involved. They're very resourceful, they can be relied on, they're very organised and have a very can-do attitude. They're willing to put themselves in situations that they may be unfamiliar with in order to achieve the end goal. And we have further ones here, such as being able to solve any problems and also negotiate, as you're always going to get people that are resistant to change and are stuck in their old way of working. They may be familiar with working with paper. It's something they've done for 20, 30 years. And although they know it can be done quicker with technology, they might be hesitant to adopt that through probably a fear of having to learn something which they may not realistically be very strong at doing. So this is something that we found with some of the older engineers. They can be slightly more resistant, and by making sure they fully understand why something's being brought in and having a champion that's a colleague of theirs help explain that to them, it's really beneficial in the long run. So their responsibilities when they're working with your end users within the organization are to fully understand exactly what the strategic objectives of the business are, and to also understand the end users' key requirements. So they're going to be working between the end users and with the business, and they're your kind of middleman who's going to facilitate everything in order for you to look for and procure the correct solution for your engineers' needs. They need to look at the way the things are currently working. The business can make one decision, but the engineers on the ground may know that the process that was outlined initially to them isn't actually being followed. So it's very important to make sure that your champion is responsible for seeing how things are currently actually working. How are people actually delivering this workflow? Are they doing it exactly how it's been specified, or are they actually working differently and taking the path of least resistance just in order to deliver their responsibilities? Once the final solution has been procured, it's their responsibility to help prioritize project phases based on the value. So this is the different areas that you're going to roll out to. You can't roll out to 1,000 users at once. It's something you have to do in steps and stages with particular groups. They're there to help identify who those key groups would be and who would get the most value and provide the quickest time to value from introducing a new system. They're also in charge of bringing further champions on. I mean, the best thing you can do is have every one of your end users as a champion, but of course it's probably easiest to start with one and grow from there. Step 3, once you have this in place, is to create your feedback loop. You need to make it as easy as possible for end users and champions to communicate back to you exactly what their needs are. You can do this through several face-to-face methods. We've got here end user focus groups where you allow people to come along and provide their thoughts. You can have one-on-one meetings with particular roles, both the managers, maybe the administrators, and even the guys who are going to be on the ground using these systems day in, day out. Or provide a champion community. So if you have multiple champions at different project sites, arrange days for them to get together and share their ideas, share their learnings, and share the best practices that that have grown through introducing softwares and things that they've learned. There are also several digital ideas that you could do. So these are a lot easier. They require a lot less man hours. And you could send online and email surveys. It's very quick for people to fill in an online survey with how a current system that they have, how they are finding that. You could also provide an electronic suggestion box. So this could be just an anonymous email box where they can send their complaints, or they could also sing praises of systems that you've currently got in place or ones that are currently being trialed. And the one that you've got at the bottom is your Net Promoter Score. So this is your NPS score. This is something that a lot of software companies are very familiar with, and they use to gauge how well they're doing in delivering their product. It's taken by asking your end users to rate the product out of 10, and the final score is taken by getting the percentage of your 9s and 10s out of 10 and subtracting from that your percentage of 0 to 6. We typically ignore the ones that rate it 7 or 8, which is just the go-to it's okay rating. So once you've gone through this, you've established who your end users are, you've established some champions, and you've set a feedback loop up so that you'll be able to continually keep them involved, it's time for you to go out and evaluate the market for a possible solution. You want to make sure that the product that you look for works with your users and make sure it doesn't work against the way that they currently work. You don't want to have to change the way that they work. You want to work with them to ensure that it's an incremental improvements to continually deliver better value from those engineers. We need to make sure it's a very flexible solution. It's one that can be adapted. If you're bringing it in for one reason, have a look at, see where the products could potentially be used in other areas. Perhaps there's another team that it would also be highly applicable to, or perhaps it's a whole new use case where you could use it once you get to understand the tool in greater depth. And the last thing, which is probably one of the most important, is how much training is required. Within the construction industry, it is a nightmare training users due to the locality of everybody. Everyone's on different projects. Everyone has deliverables and very tight timelines that they're trying to keep to. So you want a system that's very easy for engineers to pick up and play effectively, or something that a champion can sit down with an end user for 5 minutes and say, let me show you how to use this, because they're going to be going out and using it from after that 5-10 minute training session. That's something we try to work with our users very much with by providing lots of online resources and lots of different ways that they can keep in touch with us and learn how to use the solution. Once you've done all of this, it's the final stage. Return to step 3. Continually go back, keep them involved, get more feedback on what you're looking to bring in, run a trial, get that feedback again, and ensure that when you do make the decision to go with a final solution, you've made the right decision. So to cover off some of the things that we've gone over today and some of the things that I've touched upon, we've kind of established that digital transformation is happening within the construction industry. It's something that is very much needed to deliver on some of the goals that have been set, both from the UK government as a standard within the UK, but also just with organisational goals. And by using technology, it's going to be the best way for us to achieve this. There are lots of large infrastructure projects taking place across the world. I've only touched upon Crossrail, but we see that we've got a need for these projects to continue to push innovation and to continue to work with the supply chain and partner with vendors to improve results. We all need to work together on this. It's not something, the adversarial nature that is kind of inherent within construction needs to change in order for us all to work together and deliver better results. Now, the most crucial part is that the end user is key to successful innovation. You can't introduce systems that the end users reject, because that's a bad system. You can inject you can produce a system that can have every piece of functionality under the sun, but at the end of the day, if the guys aren't using it and the girls on the ground aren't using it, it's a failed system. They need to be involved. They need to feel as though they're part of that decision-making process and that you're acquiring these systems for them. They need to feel like it's for them and it's to help them. And keeping the champions involved is one of the best ways for you to do this. The vendor themselves are going to be working with the champions very closely, and a continual feedback across every stage between the business, the end users, and with the vendor is incredibly important when you're making these business decisions, when you're acquiring these systems. And it's the same from a vendor's perspective. For us to produce a better product for your employees to use, we need to be involved and we need to have that feedback loop. We need to be able to engage at all points in order to achieve this. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Joe. That was most enlightening. So we're now at the part of the presentation that looks at questions, and the first thing I want to do is to go through the poll questions that we have. I believe we have 4 of them, and they've got multi-choice answers. So I'll open up the first one. And the first one is, how much are end users involved in the initial requirement gathering phase? So let me just launch that one. Again, it's multi-choice answers, but you should see that on the screen now. Okay, we've got some answers coming in now. Couple of seconds more. I think everybody's voted. Okay, I'm going to share that. Can you see that, Joe?
I can indeed.
What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's shocking, really. I'd expect more to be done, but I mean, it's the construction industry. It's very early. We're still trying to catch up with everybody else in terms of like using technology. It's very easy for an organisation to say, this is what we need. We've produced a matrix on the needs that we believe we need, and then roll out a system without keeping the end users involved, and that's where you get that resistance. So no, less than 10%. That is pretty bad.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, well, the next question sort of follows on from that. Let me just hide that one and bring the next one up. How much would you say they're involved along the journey after that. Should be able to see that now. Right. Interesting. Couple more seconds. Okay, I'll share that. Can you see that, Joe?
Yeah, I mean, that again, like I'm not surprised, but you would expect it to be 100%. I mean, when you introduce a system, you'd expect to continually ensure that it's the right one. You need to make sure there are people within your organization who are, you've got your administrators, for example, but they need to keep on referring back to the end user and finding out where problems may be occurring that would later lead to a drop in adoption. You need to continually revisit this to make sure that they're addressed head on before a system ends up failing.
Okay. I mean, I take your point about, it's the construction industry and there's lots of different things going on. There's you're working from one end of the spectrum to the other, but in terms of adoption and getting things, how should we say, developed sooner to use this technology, what do you think could be done to make that a viable proposition?
I think closer work with vendors is probably the most important thing that needs to be addressed. The vendors understand their tool. They understand how to get the best usage out of their tool. They understand how it can best be applied to different areas of the business. And I'd like to think that a lot of the time they're very much willing to come and ensure that you're getting the most out of that. If they're not, then I don't know how their business is surviving. I mean, for us personally, it's in our best interest to work with our clients and our end users as much as possible to continually listen to them and listen to their needs, because they're the people that we're building the product for.
Sure. No, thank you for that. Okay, well, on to question 3. How well would you say mobile technologies are typically adopted within your organizations? Let me launch that one. So that looks to be, at the moment, still responses coming in. Innovators, early adopters, early majority, late majority, laggards. Okay. Right, I'm going to close that one up and share that. That's pretty much what I would say it would be without asking the question. What do you think, Joe?
I'd like to think that we've got a few innovators listening in today, but I've probably got the impression that from some of the results that they're typically going to be a few laggards, majority laggards, to actually getting that adoption.
Yeah, I'm just wondering whether there's an in-between between the innovators and the early adopters, because I think some organisations might consider themselves early adopters, but have a little bit of innovation as well. So I don't know. Maybe if the sample was expanded a little bit, maybe we'd get a drop into the first category there. But yeah, I mean the industry is typically behind with things. It's better than it was, I have to say that. But yeah, 33% in the laggards category. Okay, fair enough.
It'd be interesting to find out what size of the organisation that is, and to find out a bit more about why they believe that they are laggards.
Yeah.
What's being done to try and move them up.
Sure. Okay, I'll close that one up. The next and final question is, what would you say that your organisation was more, or would you say that your organisation was more top-down or bottom-up in its approach to procuring software? Wait a minute now. Launch that one. It should be coming through now. So I'm getting a great emphasis on top-down here. Just give that a couple more seconds. And okay, everybody looks like they voted. I'll close that out, share that. So 89% top down, that's good.
Yeah, so it comes down to introducing that feedback loop again. I mean, you want the guys who are going to be using it, the guys who aren't at the very top of the chain, who sit in the office and don't actually see what goes on sites or wherever they may be using the tools. You want them to be able to get their voices heard further up that chain. So I think getting them involved from a bottom-up perspective would be provide a lot more value within that organisation.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks very much for everybody participating in that poll session there. Thanks, Joe, for your answers. I hope everybody's got some satisfaction out of that poll session. I've got some questions now that I'd like to ask, or sorry, have been asked. If I can just share those. Just give me 1 second. I get these on the screen. Okay. So the first one I've got here is the system appears to be extremely comprehensive. The question is, how long would it take to set up a typical system on a medium-sized scheme?
So I suppose that would determine what a medium-sized scheme would be, but we typically find, as we're a SaaS solution, we're based in the cloud, it's very easy for us to get up and running and create an account. We can create an account in a matter of minutes. But in terms of working with the end users, as we were mentioning throughout the majority of this webinar, it's worth us having a few meetings beforehand to fully understand. And we typically timeline for two weeks to a month to be able to first go in, find out exactly how best to set that up, to train the users, and then go live a month later.
Okay. Okay, thank you for that. The next question I've got here is, where is the system actually hosted? Is it set up on the site servers? Is it on Baystone servers? Where is it held?
Yeah, so we're purely on the cloud, so everything's online. It's hosted in our EU data centers, which are Amazon Web Services. Okay.
Thank you for that. And the other thing is updates. You mentioned about releasing updates. How are they actually delivered? What is the mechanism for making that work?
Sure. So our updates to the web app happen automatically. No one sees that happen. They don't need to install anything. They simply go onto the web address and they're able to fully access the most up-to-date version of Baystone at all times. With regards to our mobile applications, they're all available from the App Store. People can download them. People are able to sign up for free and then log into the app. And they can just be updated as you would any other app on your mobile phone. It prompts you and says that it requires an update, and that can just take place in the background and ensure that the user is always accessing the most up-to-date version of the app.
Okay, next question I've got here is, it's a congratulations, good presentation. When gathering requirements, we've run into two types of stakeholders who present, hang on, it's just jumped up the screen, who present the challenge. Number one, those who come with experience from a certain previous system solution and find it difficult to look at things in a neutral perspective. And two, those who are trying to have the system do everything and find it difficult to prioritize or cut out low benefit features. Do you have any advice for handling these cases?
Yeah, sure. So there are so many systems out there with so many pieces of functionality. It can be quite easy to get over your head and try and bring in a system that has all of the pieces of information that you need and load it all out all at once. I typically find a best of breed approach is the best way for this. You have people that join organizations from other organizations that have used the system and they may have loved it, it may have gone well, and you'll have someone else who was at a different organization and it may have been awful, it was rolled out horrifically. It all comes down to those who are actually rolling out that solution and ensuring that they brought the right solution in for the right need. When we roll out Baystone to our users, you saw some of the use cases that were listed. We tend to focus on one or two prime use cases that we know are of the biggest requirement and where we can provide the most value earliest on. By ensuring that we deliver those well in kind of like a first tranche of a rollout, you automatically get the champions within the business. People become familiar with using it, they like using it, and then when it comes to actually rolling that out further, they're more willing to help support that, and people are willing to go that little bit extra to make sure that it's a success in other areas.
Okay, thank you for that. I trust that answers the question. The next question I've got here is to do with feedback, and the question is this: would you say that the primary reason for aversion to soliciting feedback is in filtering through and making sense of potential wide-ranging responses? Assuming so, how do you tackle that?
It depends on how much feedback you get through. So if it's going to be quite wide-ranging, a way to get around that would be through sending an email with a predefined set of answers, similar to the NPS review there. The NPS score will give you a good understanding across the business of how well a product's being received without kind of giving people the ability to add free text and comments, which could then lead to another list of requirements that people have specified that they wanted to do the impossible, which it wasn't built to do. So I definitely say start with something that's very much a closed down questionnaire and then open that up and invite people into the face-to-face kind of scenarios that I opened up, that I showed earlier. Then involve those people who are really that passionate about making the change. If they're that passionate about something that's wrong with the system, then they're going to be your champions for making that change and for also introducing something new.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for that. I think that pretty much answered that question. One thing you mentioned about the setup and it taking 2 weeks to a month to set up depending on the size and proximity. There's one other question I've got here is in support and training. Now I know you did touch on that, but in terms of managing support and the release of new updates, how is that actually managed? Is it a facility that you can do online? Is it a facility where you send people out? What is the operation for making that happen?
Sure. So in terms of support and training, we want to make it as easy as possible for the end users to be trained how they like to be trained. So we have an online help portal where there's kind of Q&As, frequently asked questions, how-to guides, best practices. We also allow for email support and ticket-based support. If there's a particular thing which wasn't answered on the help portal, we have training videos which users can get trained on. And we also go onto site quite regularly to ensure that we're working with those who are using it a greater amount and to get their feedback on particular aspects of the product. A lot of people are using software at the moment, any type of software across your organization, and they have issues with it, but they aren't annoyed enough to be bothered raising a ticket or to get in contact with the company or to actually let someone else know about that. And we find that the best way to actually get that open communication is to actually sit down with somebody and kind of have a therapy session and hear what they like, what they dislike, and why that is, what's in the root cause of it.
A therapy session, great. Yeah. Okay. I've got one more question here. Another one that's just arrived is there? We've looked at the use and operation of the system, and whilst the engineering side of it with iPads, etc., you know, that's pretty skilled. Okay, it's less skilled now than it was. In the old days, you had to have a number of eyes on a number of things happening all at once. I think what this is alluding to is the administration side of it, where we saw in the video an individual in the office. The question is this: is there any special skills required?
Yeah, so I wouldn't say there was. I mean, we can train anybody on the tool from anywhere from 10 minutes for a quick how-to guide to probably it takes us an hour to teach them how to do the full administrative kind of actions that they may require. When we develop the tool, we're taking the same sort of approach that you get with products which are like Facebook, LinkedIn, our email. No one's ever really sat down and taught us how to use it. We just get it. Similar with YouTube, you go on there and you know how to search it. You just get it, and that's how we like to build the product. We want an engineer to be able to pick it up and teach themselves in 10 minutes. We don't want to provide a system that then comes with a book that goes from the top of your head to the ground on a how-to guide for everything that they'd need. We want it to be very, very easy, and we build a lot of that into the application as well.
Great.
Guiding them through that they need.
Yeah. No, that's great that you've explained it like that, because that's what people look for. Okay, well that concludes the questions. I've no more to read out on that. Just a couple of things to wrap up. We've got some announcements. I mentioned at the beginning the event in London, the ETDP. 31st of May, Central London. There's several interactive sessions and networking opportunities and that. you'll get a first-hand view of what's making a difference now and in the near future, getting an insight into the application of disruption and technology disruption, understanding how streamlining processes and people across multiple industries can enhance productivity and efficiency. You'll also hear from organisations that have developed solutions in a collaborative fashion, and you'll see demonstration of what the tangible benefits are through case studies. Please take a look at the website through the link. The link is here. Hang on, there it is. So it's that tiny URL at the top. Some more on social media. Let's continue the conversation. The FearTech LinkedIn, comments LinkedIn. These videos, the webinar will be uploaded to video. It'll be put on YouTube, as with all the previous videos. You're very welcome to go and peruse. Lots of interesting information since we started this in January 2014. That's about it, really. I have nothing else to say, but please do take the survey. We use the information that you provide to enhance what we do and shape where we go in the future. There's only one thing for me to say now is thanks very much to Joe and Baystone for coming on and delivering a fantastic presentation. Thanks to all the people behind the scenes, including Vineet. And can you come and join us next time for the next instalment of the Mobile IT Community of Interest? So, Joe, have you anything to say before we complete?
I suppose if anyone would like to find out more, they can go onto our website. It's baystone.io, or they can send me over an email. It's just joe@baystone.io. I'll be happy to answer any further questions.
Great. Well, thank you very much. As I said, I will. The webinar will be uploaded fairly shortly, and you'll be notified of when it's available to view. But thanks very much, and as I say, have a good day. Cheers, everybody.